Hello everybody, I believe we are going live. Yes we are, we're live. Right, hello everybody, welcome to my home, my studio in Western Australia. It's 9 in the morning. I have received lots of questions from both Patreons, I'm going to get to those first, and from a lot of guys on straight on YouTube. Some of you on YouTube sent some questions in yesterday. They have vanished from my screen. If you'd like to re-ask me them, go for it. Don't know why they've gone. They were there and I actually went through them and thought, oh, it's quite good questions. And so I'll get to those, but I wanted to mention a few things. We have in Perth not been in a severe lockdown situation. The longest periods I spent not going out was about 3 weeks. Gwyn would go out once a week, get food and things like that, and things are being relaxed here now. And I know a lot of you watching, a lot of you followers of the channel have been in far more stringent and more difficult lockdowns than we have. So we're thinking about you because we've actually had it comparatively easy here in Australia, particularly Western Australia. So thinking of you and knowing that this is a challenging time. So I'm gonna be answering questions about anything, about absolutely anything, really anything. I've had a lot of questions about my family. When I released that video, that I was literally a home movie. I just started filming around the house, and I had a lot of questions about my family. So my oldest daughter is Stephanie. She's very loud and noisy and playful, and turn my phone off, thank you very much. Everybody knows when she's around because everybody wants Stephanie around, because she's one of these people that just draw like moths to a flame. Just people just are drawn to her because she has this personality. The nicest, kindest person you could ever wish to meet, and she is a very accomplished brand photographer in Perth, and she touts herself as Perth's best brand photographer. Well, I know I'm a father and I know I'm biased, but she's so good. She's so good. And she's got from, she went from ordinary photography to outstanding photography in like 6 months. It was the turnaround was extraordinary. So, and she has a YouTube channel. She's not big on YouTube. But she does have a media presence, and the link to her channel is in the description of this video. My middle daughter, Erin, she is a writer like Gwyn. She writes with Gwyn and independently. She's a fantasy author. And she also has a YouTube channel called Hit Me With Your Best Book. That's also linked below. So if you're interested in books, mostly fantasy books, but all kinds of books. And she's very active on her YouTube channel. And of course there's Kate and Cameron, Young Married and Sailing. We're doing a project with them now. We're building I've called it the Backpackers Overlander. We are building a budget, almost homemade Overlander. Basic vehicle, basic equipment, lots of homemade stuff, everything about it. But then again, we're not skimping on things that are important, like tires, for example. Don't skimp on things that are really important. Reliability and safety, that kind of stuff. So, but it's a balance. But some things you can skimp on. Some things you just don't need to spend a lot of money on. So that's a very nice balance. And that, I reckon we'll probably release that video in maybe July, maybe June. But anyway, it's ongoing. We're filming it. That's great fun. I've had a lot of feedback from people who have been saying, oh, they're doing that project during lockdown, and making use of Terrain Tamer, who they're around the world, and their online sales has not stopped. So they've been able, they've said to me that they've actually had some quite good. It's quite good orders. They've been quite busy with supporting guys. What a perfect time to build your four-wheel drive and do some maintenance, do some, whatever. So their e-commerce thing is functioning, and that's kept some of us from going mad. I wanted to speak briefly about the color of the Land Cruiser. mostly you guys love it. It is an exceptional color, and I knew it was risky. I knew at the time it was risky. But you've got to take a risk. The green was risky. You've got to take a risk, and it's stunning. It is absolutely stunning. Gwen was right when she said it needs more black, but there is going to be more black. I've already planned. Rails are on the side from the bull bar. See, the camper is a dark color and sits on the back and is quite wide. And to balance the width of the vehicle and the dark colors at the back, more dark colors at the back than at the front, the side rails will fill out it'll balance the vehicle's appearance. Apart from the fact that I want some strong side rails and rock sliders, but the standard ARB sliders wouldn't fit because the chassis extension has meant that the chassis is actually a little taller. And so the ribs that wrap around the chassis, they don't drill through the chassis. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit it if they did. But there's a bracket around the chassis, and there's the standard. It wouldn't fit on the standard chassis, so they're doing a modification for me, and that'll be fitted. I think it's on the 6th or the 9th of June is when that's going to be fitted. And that I'm sure will balance out that black contrast with the color, which is needed. A lot of people asked me what's happened to my watch. I sent in my watch to be repaired. I'd had it for 39 years, and it needed a repair, and just before COVID closed down. So I'm sitting waiting, and still don't have it, and I have no idea when I will have it. Absolutely no idea at all. Guys, if you want to throw some questions my way, Super Chat is active, and if you want to make sure that I get your questions, if you're on YouTube, if you want to make sure that I get your questions, then there's the Super Chat. I'm going to go through the questions pretty fast. I'm going to pretty fast turnaround because there are lots of them. So forgive me if my answers are brief. Okay, I'm going to go through Patreons first. Andres asked me about the new Defender and the 90 when the 90 comes standard with coil springs. Would I own one? Well, I don't know, but why the 90 with coil springs and not the long wheelbase version? The 90. They've got it completely wrong. It's another way, forgive me if I start ranting, it's another way of Land Rover. You have no idea your market. You do not understand your market. You think that the market for the Defender are the same people that buy Discoveries and Range Rover Sports. They're not. The 90 doesn't need coil springs. Leave the 90 with air springs. It's a fun play thing where you want to be able to jack it up and The long wheelbase one is the one that we want to carry a load over really rough ground because we want to go on trips with it, and we need long wheelbase for that. We don't want the short wheelbase for that. It's too short. Again, Land Rover, you have missed the boat because you don't understand your market, or you understand your market, but your market is so narrow, is so limited. What you have created in the new new Defender is a Discovery 4 with a bit more payload. That's it. There's no difference. There's no difference. Although that's probably not as practical as the Discovery because the Discovery had a drop-down tailgate. Anyway, that's what I think. Would I buy a 90? Not even slightly interested. I'd buy a Suzuki Jimny before I bought a Land Rover 90. David asks if you could Frankenstein aspects of different factory vehicles together with an ideal base vehicle, what would you pick and why? That we used to talk about that a lot. We would sit around the campfire and talk about that a lot. I don't actually have something in my head this very minute. I actually don't. What would I do? I don't know. I actually don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. Where did you get started? Okay, so this is Cooper. I got started in four-wheel drive because my dad had a Range Rover and bought a Range Rover. You'd probably know the story. You've watched some of the videos. And we went into the bush, and I was hooked. And I was particularly hooked on Land Rovers, and particularly Range Rovers, and bought a Range Rover. And after a while, after I'd done it myself for 10 years, realized that people around me didn't know anything. I was living in South Africa at the time, that so many people wanted to go and buy a four-wheel drive and go traveling, and they didn't know things. So I wrote a book, and I wrote South Africa's very, very first four-wheel drive book, and I have written 16 editions, hardcover editions, and my first book, which was published in 1993, was on sale non-stop in South Africa for 24 years. And it stopped in 2017, was the last copy was sold. So that's where I got started. And my film side, I was while I was having fun with my four-wheel drive, I was editing TV commercials, and I did that for 16 years. And that's my beginning. And I think that's why I love the film side, and because that's my vocation, is for film, and particularly editing. I love editing. I started as an editor. Roy, are there any overlanding trips that you've done ignoring border political? Yes, absolutely. My bucket list: Madagascar, Iceland, Argentina. Those are the three. Somebody asked, would I ever go to Turkey? Well, not that I wouldn't go to Turkey, but it's not on my bucket list, because in addition to those three, there's Tanzania, there's the Western Sahara and Morocco, there's Alaska. So there are other places that are higher up on the bucket list. Joshua asked me, what are my opinion of foam cell shock absorbers, particularly the Ironman Foam Pro Cell, purpose for moderate touring and off-road tracks, nothing too hard. So now I've got to be a little bit careful here with when I talk about Ironman products. I always have backlash when I talk about Ironman products. Well, I have in the past had some unpleasant backlash. This is my opinion. This is my personal experience. When I drove the GX470 in the United States in 2017, was it? The ride was shockingly bad, and it had that set on it. It had Ironman and so it was a combination of Ironman springs and the foam cell, shock absorbers. So I'm wearing a cap because I haven't had a haircut in 2.5 months. And the ride was horrific. And the chap with us was driving a Tacoma, and also had the same Ironman setup. And we would be driving along the track, and it was so hard that I thought, no, there's something wrong with the car. So I jumped into his Tacoma, and it was so hard. So then I thought, okay, I need some kind of control, or some kind of point of comparison here. So I jumped into my mate's Tundra, which had a worn set of Old Man Emu, an ordinary Old Man Emu setup, nothing special, and a bit worn, a bit saggy at the back. The difference was just, it was difficult to describe in words how bad the Ironman setup was. Only my experience, my personal experience. I've also had one situation when they first came out, this was before the foam, a chap called me and told me about that he'd had a Fortuner and wanted to do an upgrade, and he drove for 6 hours and went into a town, he was on a trip, and changed it to something else because he said it was unbearable. And so, okay, let me give you the good part about the Ironman springs and shocks. They're very strong. They've got a good reputation for. This is just my experience, my own personal experience. I'm not giving this as facts. This is my own personal opinion. Strong, tough, okay. But suspension, it's easy to think, oh, I'm going to go and buy some suspension. I'm going to go and upgrade my suspension. Whoa! I drove a Land Cruiser 100 VX in South Africa in September, and the VX is a wonderful vehicle. I think the 100 is better than the 200 Land Cruiser. And I thought, the ride is a bit. it's a bit choppy, and I can feel everything. I got out and looked. Ironman Pro Foam shock absorbers. It wasn't an upgrade, it was a downgrade. It was a downgrade. It was a suspension. I'm going to go and buy a suspension downgrade. Only my opinion, only my personal experience. Okay. Take it or leave it. Okay, my experience. All right. Chris, I think you have excellent taste. Agreement with mine. Good. I'm interested to know what you rate highly in terms of recovery equipment for the overland traveler. All right. Do you need a winch as an overland? No, not really. Nice to have. Big heavy weight in front of the vehicle. But nice to have if you're traveling alone. Yeah, really nice to have, almost like an insurance policy in the back of your head. Although I've done so many overland trips, and I can only think of one time where, boy, a winch would have been nice. That was in Botswana in 2010, and we hit black cotton mud, and there were 3 vehicles, and none of us had a winch. Ooh, we would have, one time. See, so but remember, often you'll have other people helping you, so make sure you have the shackles and the mounts on the vehicle. Very important, the mounts on your vehicle to be able to pull out, and heavy duty mounts. Don't skimp on the mounts, and don't guess, because when they break, ooh, bad news. So you will often be helped by somebody else, or help somebody else. I've helped somebody else quite often, actually. Not that often by actually pulling them out, mostly by several times by saying, do this and do this, and they can't drive out, and I've climbed in and done something and driven straight out. So often a lot of people you were driving and you'll meet have no experience at all, even on driving and even the four-wheel drive systems. So equip yourself to help others and have others help you. Yeah, kinetic strap, pull straps, lots of shackles, and some safety ties. And yeah, safety is a big deal. Okay. BDV, did the camper arrive? Oh yes, this week. I'm hoping Wednesday for a lots of questions coming through, guys. I will get to you. Yes, the campers. Oh, I'm so excited about the camper. You see, the thing is that the troop carrier, the accommodation modifications were a little limited. Well, they were limited, but fantastic. This feels unlimited. And the whole package is, I'm going to do a video, 79 double cab versus troop carrier and the pros and cons. The troop carrier drives better than the 79. Of all the Land Cruiser 70 series, the troop carrier drives the best. It's the best wheelbase. For some reason, that wheelbase just works. Okay, I haven't driven this off-road once on the beach, that's all. So, blank canvas. Very, very excited. Very, very excited. So I filmed a whole lot of kind of my first impressions of it. Bada asked about the BP51s for his Jeep Wrangler. You know that in the 76, it's got leaf springs, which means it's brittle at the back, and it tends to, a lot of the ride tends to, more so than with coils, transmitted through the bodywork. So you're going to feel the advantages of a really high performance shock absorbers a little more than you will with a coil spring. I say that because I know people with 76s and 79s who just love them. My troop carrier had a brilliant ride. Really, really good ride. I think it will work extremely well with your Jeep. I do. The ride is good, hey? Really. And in fact, if you've got ordinary shocks now and you go to BP51s, transformation. Alexandra asked me, recommend any resources in Perth for good starting point for some basic mechanics. I don't, Alexandra. I'm sorry, I actually don't have any. It'd be a good thing to research for mechanical and that kind of stuff, for lessons and everything. There's no bush mechanic schools. If you are a bush mechanic school and you are in Western Australia, please get in touch with me. Be good that. But I wish I could help, but I actually don't know. Brent asks, fuel tanks. Brown Davis 170 litre or Long Ranger 180 litre on a troop carrier. Both good tanks, both good products, both good reputation. Okay, plastic versus steel. Plastic, trouble, there's no plastic tank I think that is available for the troop carrier. I do not believe there's a plastic tank available for the troop carrier. But plastic versus steel tanks, well, good plastic tank is going to be lighter. Weight is an issue, it's right on the back. So plastic, but I don't think they make a plastic for the troop carrier. Steve asked about a hot water system. I use the Duetto boiler, hot water boiler. That system that I build, and then the guys at Quick Pitch do this, plumbing system. I'm not interested in anything else in my new 79. My Dream Tourer, not interested in everything else. It works so brilliantly. Because when you're out in the bush, you want something. I like convenience, as you know. But this uses it doesn't waste any water. Every other gas system I've used, when you try and get the temperature right, you waste water. This, nada. You don't waste a drop. It's so clever. But the heater boiler, yeah, you need batteries to back it up, etc., etc. Man, they work well. And it's got a built-in thermostat that you can, they work well. Okay? They work well. Really, really well. You don't have to have all of the clever systems that Quick Pitch build into their systems. I don't know how they do it. They haven't given me, and I'm not about to go and reverse engineer their work. That wouldn't be fair. And share it to everybody. That's not fair. That's something that they build and it's their product. Okay? But you don't need that. You can just get the boiler and it's got a thermostat on it. And so right. All right, Andrew, this is Gary. Okay, the chassis extension is asking if it makes it longer than the factory build. Yes, it does. The chassis extension was 300, but the overall length of the vehicle is only 90 wider longer than the actual vehicle. Because now I've shortened the overhang at the back because I thought the overhang was too long, and I wanted to get weight forward, so it's only extended it by 90. So it is slightly longer. Has it affected the turning radius? Yes. Poor turning radius. Not terrible, but it's poor. It's poor anyway, so it's made it a little bit worse. Kupelwa, greetings from Africa. Which vehicle do you plan for the US build once the pandemic is over if I was to build a vehicle in the US? My biggest challenge in the US is actually getting a vehicle to build. Wouldn't it be great if I had funding to take this for a year to the US, my extended Land Cruiser, do some shows, do some traveling? Yeah, that would be good, eh? That would be good. What would I build in the US? I don't know. I actually don't know. The Tommy camper is available in the US, and maybe I do something with Tommy campers if they want to help. If we want to work with each other a little bit more. I don't know. I really don't know. But finding a vehicle in the US is always a bit of a challenge. I was speaking to some Jeep guys, and they had an interesting troop carrier-like system in a Jeep, which looked very interesting. They had invited me, and they said, "Look, we'll loan you a vehicle for however long you like." Okay, Mess. He's got a troop carrier. Stock suspension, bit of a long question here. What would you recommend as I won't be carrying a lot of weight? Is looking terrain tamer or EFS or OME? I don't know. Terrain tamer. EFS? OME? They're all good. All good. Terrain tamer is about to bring out a Pro Shock with a variable something. I don't know too much about it. Maybe it's worth waiting for that. I don't know. Okay. All right. You're going a bit too. I'm not going to answer that question about a carbureted 3F engine. A little bit too specific for me, Mess. Okay, insurance. Morna is asking about insurance. I have pretty regular insurance for my vehicle, but they do cover overland trips, tracks and things like that, and they do take into consideration the modifications I've done. In South Africa, I use a product called True Grit Solutions. It's a guy by the name of Bruce Wilmore. He's been in the business for as long as I can remember, offering tailor-made solutions for vehicles that are being used throughout Africa, and you can put all your modifications in there, and and they have all the countries in Africa, and so it's good. And they have a recovery service. If you break down or something, they can go and send somebody to go and fetch you and that kind of stuff. Very, very good comprehensive cover. But that is South Africa, for Africa insurance. It's called True Grit. I imagine if you go to Google True Grit, you'll find it. Why do you prefer, Rob is asking, why do I prefer electric hot water system over gas? Because it's so simple. Turn it on, click, 2 minutes later, hot water. Gas, I've used all of them, well, a lot of them. And they work. None work as well as electric. I'm sold. I really am sold. Your last 2 Aussie builds, this is Rob again, your last 2 Aussie builds are focused on 2 usable seats. If you wanted to build, would I go more seats, 79 or 70, change to 76? No, 76 definitely not. 76 is too small for 4 people to travel. It's too small, you have to then tow. Whereas a 79, you don't. You still got to keep the weight down, otherwise the handling goes to pot, but you don't. You can actually put 4 people in the back. The 79 is not quite as comfortable as the 76 in the back. Not quite as comfortable. It's a little bit more cramped. Not a lot, but a little bit more cramped. But no, 76 is too small for 4 people. In my book, it's too small for 4 people. I used 100 series before I bought a 76. It's bigger, more comfortable in the back. Rob again, last one. Imagine a 70 series was withdrawn from the market. What would you buy in the Australian market tomorrow? I have no idea. Not a clue. Okay, Mark has asked about the spare wheels on the camper. 1 spare wheel against the header board on the front left. 2nd spare wheel when I need it on the back of the camper. There is a place for it already. So I've sorted the double wheel issue was a big issue for me. It's been sorted, and the guys it was actually the Western Australia agent who actually said, why don't you put it inside? Really? Yeah, look, if you do this and you do that, and we'll just move that and you can solution done. Okay, Fatima asked, I was wondering if you had a general list of overlanding gear. The trouble is with gear lists, everybody's different. There's no single list that'll work for everybody. For example, a spare wheel trash carrier. You don't have to have it. You don't have to have so many of these things. But yeah, spare wheel trash carrier. Seriously nice to have. I'll have one on this vehicle because that's where you put the trash and it doesn't make everything smell. So, but there's no one list that will really work for absolutely everybody. So, Patreons, okay, here you go. Here's some new questions from Patreons. Just wondering how you find time to do all your projects and also have the stress of moving to a more permanent address. Okay, Ray, we've been living here now for, it'll be 3 years by the time we actually vacate, so 3 years, and we are actually buying property. We will be buying property. So and I'm going to be building a studio, and we're pretty excited about it, and we will be doing that probably in around October. Okay, sorry, I jumped on the. All right. Okay, John asked about have your thoughts on your 76 versus 78? Can you recommend a ute with a tub, canopy versus ute? Okay, a little bit about this, John. The 76 is small. It's a small vehicle. It's small for passengers. The 70 series, as you know, is quite small for drivers too. It's not a big space. It's not Defender squashed, but it's not Land Cruiser 200 space. Okay, but it's not a particularly roomy place. In the back, it's even less roomy, and the 76 is small. The 78, if you're doing with touring with 78, the 78, the troop carrier. I did a video comparing the two. Last year, a year or so ago, I did a video comparing the 76 versus 78. Go and have a look at that. The 78 knocks the 76 out of the park when it comes to overland travel. Really, it does everything better. And it's a troop carrier. Troop carriers are cool. Troop carriers are really cool. They just are. And if you don't agree with me, well then just deal with it. Randy, I hear you mention the word tourer and you talk about overland vehicles. What exactly is a tourer and different types of overland vehicles? Tourer and overland vehicles are really the same thing. In Australia, they're called tourers. It's more a word, but it means the same thing. Overland touring, long distance, remote overland touring, where you need to carry and be self-sufficient for long periods of time and long distances. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. Same thing, really. Gaurav, hello, Gaurav. Given your massive experience, how would some of your decisions, choices regarding outfitting change if you were building a daily driver truck for the occasional trip instead of outright expedition rig? Excellent question. You see, the troop carrier that I built was an overland expedition rig. I used it in my daily driver, but I don't commute. So I don't, but I just used it around town, and it was absolutely fine around town. And for trips to the movies, we just use Gwynn's Corolla. This vehicle I've got now, what I'm doing with it now, one of the things that was important to me in selecting a camper was that I could take it off easily. It was one of those less flexible items. And because now I've got a vehicle that is, yes, a little bit cumbersome in the parking lot because it's big, now has a even poorer turning circle, but it's a ute. It's an open ute. When I don't have the camper on the back, so the systems we're going to build into it is going to be plug and play. I'm going to drop it in and plug it in. When they dropped it off, and I was keen to watch this, when they delivered it, it was on the back of a ute. They delivered it, and I watched them take it off using the legs that come with it. And 5 minutes, one person, maybe 5 minutes, and was off that quick. I thought, yes. So there's a vehicle that can be used now. My ute can be used as it every day. I won't leave the camper on it all the time. I'll have the camper stored until I'm doing trips. I won't leave it on there all the time. No point. So that's why we're actually making the parts of the electrical system self-contained within the vehicle and then self-contained within the camper. So the camper goes on the back, it's plugged in, and everything turns on. That's the idea, is to make... The Troopy is not a particularly versatile vehicle, particularly when converted into an overland camper, where you put stuff in the back and now you can't load stuff in the back. And it reduces its versatility. Now what I've done is I've actually expanded the car's versatility by doing this new system. That was part of the reason for moving away from the troop carrier. I'd still like a troop carrier parked in my garage somewhere. It's just there. I'm going to look at it occasionally, drive it around occasionally. Andreas, have you considered flatbed models, four-wheel pop-up campers for your project? Now, the four-wheel pop-up camper is a very nice product. I used it in 2017, I think it was, with Gwyn in the States, and we did Death Valley, and it's lovely. It's a great product, but it's too wide for the Land Cruiser 76. It just sticks out too much. But it's nice, very nice. What I've got is not unlike that, but narrower and a slightly different. Four-wheel pop-up's good. I hate the way it looks. It looks like a 1972 caravan finish. Hate the way it looks. I think they've got to do something about that way. But they're selling every single one they can make. They're enormously popular because they're good. Yeah. Philip says, COVID has my car sitting in the driveway. I drive from time to time, but what would be the best way to look after your truck when they're stationary for such a long time? Okay, the best way really is to jack them up. Actually get the tires off the ground. If you can't do that, make the tires really hard so you don't get a flat spot. And run the engines you want to run the engine no more than 6 weeks. You want to run the engine, and don't run it for 10 minutes, run it for at least 30 minutes. Get it hot. You actually want to get it hot. That's the whole point of it, to get it hot, get all the lubricants moving around. And a proper maintenance battery charger. They're quite common these days. The one I'm using is a red arc unit, and it has quite a clever trick in that it tops the battery up. It immediately senses what kind of battery automatically, and it's got certain preset programs. But it'll fill the battery up, and then it won't trickle charge it. It'll actually turn itself off for so many days, and let the battery naturally run down. Car batteries like to be cycled. They like that. That's what car batteries like. And the different types of batteries like that kind of thing. And so with lithium batteries, actually it'll let it run actually down before it brings it back up again. So I don't know the technicalities of it, but a proper maintenance charger is really important. Otherwise your batteries just won't last. They won't. If you put a trickle charger on it without a proper regulator, it'll damage the battery actually. After a while, it'll come back to it after 6 months, and the battery will fully charge, but the battery won't be able to accept a charge after that, and you'll find very soon after that the battery will just fail. Hope that helps. Bill has asked, my girlfriend who refuses to go overlanding saw your video with your shower, and she told me that if she had one of those showers she would go overlanding with me. Okay, this is a big deal. So can you post an equipment list of your shower? Okay, so I will when I'm doing it on the doing a decent camper. You need the best way of doing it. The quick pitch ensuite is a shower curtain, like the one I used. Instant shower. 30 seconds, you've got a mat on the thing, you've got privacy. Boom, 30 seconds. Okay. You've got to make these things easy. Otherwise they're a pain and you won't use them. So I think about all access to the car. If things are easy to access, you'll use the stuff. If it's difficult to get to, you won't use it. So I take it. So again, with the shower, you want it quick and easy. The electric boilers work so well because they are so easy, and it's got a thermostat on it, and you turn it like this and blah, 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 blah. And really, getting a good shower going in a car now is not difficult. Really not difficult in any vehicle. And it's a 10 litre, it's this big. I don't know how much they are. They're not expensive. Not cheap, but they're not expensive. And that's an Australian product. They're bound to be similar products around the world. They're bound to be. I just know that the Duetto is the one that I've used, and that's fantastic. Okay, Scott has asked, how's the Africa Land Cruiser doing, and once quarantine is over, what country would you visit first? The Africa trip has been cancelled for 2020, obviously. 2021, we'll see what happens. I'm working with some people to do something with the Africa trip, because what worries me is that the vehicle just sits there for 2 years in a shed. It's going to ruin the vehicle. It's going to ruin it. It has to be used. Vehicles don't like to sit. Oil seals get brittle, and then you start having trouble with diesel pumps, and a car's got to be run. So I'm working on some projects. I might announce something quite soon on that actually, but got to do something with that vehicle. Can't have it lying there. But really disappointed that I couldn't go and play with my truck. I had it all planned out. We were going to do something amazing anyway. What country will I visit first when the lockdown is over? I don't know. I don't know. We'll worry about that. Going to do some cool stuff in Australia this year. All right. Brent has asked. He's got a 1998 troop carrier, and he's owned since new. Choices of the rear tank. Okay, so I mentioned that earlier. That was about the fuel tank on the troop carrier. You want to extend the range. It's already got two 90-litre tanks. It's pretty good range. I didn't find I needed that extra tank in my troop carrier much, but you would know if you've had it for that long. You'll know. Obviously what kind of range you're getting. So yeah, I would Brown Davis or Long Ranger. Both are very good tanks. Thank you, Doug. Greetings from Huntington Beach, California. Hope you guys are doing well there. We've been watching the news from America. Scary times. Refrigerator options for the beginner. Oh, that's such a good question. And in fact, part of this overland for backpackers, we're actually addressing that very question, and I'm actually researching it now. I don't really have an answer. Yeah, $500 to $700 instead of a Snowmaster. Dometic, Waco, don't know the prices of those. There are some cheaper options than, the best on the market are, the Snowmasters and the National Lunars and the Engels, and they're expensive, but they work. Do you need them? No. We'll find a way around them. Second-hand Engel, maybe a second-hand, but even a second-hand Engel is $1,000. Second-hand 40-litre Engel, people want $1,000 for it. Too much. Can you turn the autofocus on, please? I'm in focus, and the autofocus is working. Ray, I'm looking at myself on the screen, and I'm perfectly in focus. So I don't know. Strange. That would why you're not seeing me in focus. Which most of the interesting overland tracks do you recommend for the solo explorer? I'm assuming you're talking about Australia. One of my most fun solo trips was the Connie Sue, 6 days out of Perth. Oh, that was a good trip. I just feel like doing it again, even if it's exactly the same route. It was really good, really good. Yeah, I assume you're Australia, Western Australia, because I don't know. Stephen, greetings from Christchurch. Thank you, Stephen. Got some mates down in New Zealand. I hear you're coming out of a full lockdown. You've been in a massive lockdown. Amazing. In New Zealand. What program website do you use to get the color swatches for your troop carrier wrap? For my troop carrier wrap, I didn't use anything like that at all. They did it at Sinorama, so I didn't use. I want a custom blue color. I didn't use any program at all. They did it. I gave them the sample car, as you saw. And with the troop carrier, I said I want retro green, and I gave them some samples of Pantone colors. I gave them a whole lot of Pantone colors, and I said print samples of that, which they did, and then we picked one. So I just used Pantone. I used Photoshop, and I used Pantone. So help that. Maybe that answers your questions. Where do you see overlanding? This is Darren. Where do you see overlanding in 10 years from now, and what kind of vehicles, equipment do you imagine being available in the future? Well, if the moment an electric vehicle comes along with a 1,000-kilometer range, yeah, but then again, you've got to make sure your destination you can charge it. So do you need a charging point, or can you plug it into a wall and just use, all those questions that I don't know. I've never owned an electric vehicle, but I do say, yes, it is. Electric will be. I think that'd be quite nice. Imagine that. Climb in the morning instead of that, it would be meh, and then be weird. You better hear the birds. Better. I don't know. I kind of like that idea. Okay, gear overlanders should take or leave behind. This is Sam. What are a few items that overlanders think they need but end up leaving behind? And what are 2 or 3 items overland don't need, they need to make a big difference? I can tell you a quick story here. There was a guy called Richard Giller. He's still around. He ran overland. He was one of these first people in South Africa, one of the early pioneers in South Africa to run tag-along tours. And he had a chap I remember it was a Nissan Tracker, and he arrived on the morning of leaving I think they were doing something in Botswana, and he said, I'm ready to go. And he was really enthusiastic, too enthusiastic. Richard, I've got, and he said, if you need tools, I've got, and he showed him some electrical power drill and a few other things, but they weren't battery operated. In those days you couldn't get battery operated power drills. And he said, and we didn't have inverters, we never used to carry inverters. Maybe a tiny inverter, I would carry a tiny little inverter, but no, people weren't. He said, where do you intend to plug that in? No, he said, good, I hope you have a very long extension lead. And apparently the guy just stared at him. He hadn't thought of it. So there you go. There's somebody taking some stuff they don't need on an overland trip. I don't really know what people do. I think that what people do that a lot when they have trailers, when they pack a trailer. So 2 people in a 4-seater vehicle with a trailer. Now it's okay if the trailer is a camper trailer, because they're using it to camp because that's their accommodation, and they decide to tow their accommodation. It's okay. I don't want to tow my accommodation, but some people find that it's absolutely acceptable, and it is. It's fine. But some people just tow it to carry stuff. So they have a fully packed roof rack, only 2 people in an SUV, pulling a trailer. For what? Just so you can stand and cook something. And I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get the need. I don't understand the need to carry so much stuff. Why do you need? Surely, doing this kind of trip, you want to get away from stuff. My trip carrier was empty. It was half full of camera equipment for doing my work. The rest of it was empty. I have one stove, one. I have 1 frying pan and 1 pot, 1 of each. Why would I need 2? On the occasion that you would need 2, well, just use the frying pan. That kind of stuff. So, but people tend to think, oh, what happens if I need? Well, make a plan. It's a different approach, but I don't understand why people need to carry so much stuff. I don't understand it. All right. I'm going to start getting onto the many questions on the YouTube list. Thanks, guys. Somebody asked me, and it just stuck out to me, do you have any intention of moving back to South Africa? No. I've been asked this quite often. No. Australia is flipping fantastic. Okay, and home. This is my home. Yeah, I miss Africa much more than I miss South Africa. Very happy in Australia. It's working well for us, working well for the business, and it's a great place to live. It's a fantastic place to live. Damon, thank you for your contribution. Damon from Victoria. I have a 97 Disco 300 TDI that should be on the road hopefully within 2 weeks. Right. Any recommendations for first mods to do with it? You know, the thing is that, what do you want to do with it? 97 would be 97. That's a Disco 1, of course. Yes, not a Disco 2, Disco 1. So the Disco 1 is one of the best low-cost 4-wheel drive tourer off-road vehicles you can buy. They're as cheap as chips. They're simple. They're easy to maintain. Parts are not expensive as long as you don't buy the parts from Land Rover, but lots of other people are selling parts. And it is a lovely little vehicle. And not so well made. And Land Rover. Blah, 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 blah. The fact is that just to drive, it's a lovely car. So what would I, first mods to do with it? Okay, you're going to need, because of that long travel coil spring suspension, you are going to need some good shock absorbers. You are really going to need good shock absorbers with that. Standard shock absorbers are awful. So change them and put on decent, you probably don't have the original ones on there, it's a pretty old vehicle. Good shock absorbers and tires obviously. And what else can I say? Don't skimp on shocks of that vehicle. You put good shocks on that vehicle and it rides brilliantly. And hey, good luck. That's a fantastic vehicle. I think I've always said the Disco one of the best beginner cars, because they're cheap as chips and they wonderful, lovely cars. But learn how to fix them, because they can be a bit troublesome. And an old one is going to have electrical niggles and things like that. If you're happy to fix them, then you're going to be happy. I'm sure you're going to be happy with that. I'm going to scan through these questions, guys, and okay, somebody asked me a question I saw earlier about what thing would I never leave behind if I went on a trip, and I actually put them here. These are my opinels. Now, these, not only would I not leave them behind for a trip, I use them on a daily basis around the house. I use them all the time. I have 2 of them and they're always with me, and I can get, excuse me, I'm burping a lot, this orange juices. I can get that blade unbelievably sharp, uncannily sharp. I use them all the time. I have a steak here. I don't have a steak knife. No. Like butter through steak. I love these little knives. Something about them. I think it's maybe the wood handle. Wood handles are really nice. Anyway, that was one question that I saw that I thought was worth answering. My camera keeps going out of focus. Okay, the autofocus is on. It's focusing on my face, and I'm moving, and it's trying to catch up with me. Sorry, guys, I can't help that's going out of focus, but I'll try and move less. Do you think the ultimate Land Cruiser Toyota ever produced would be the 105 with the, yes, with the, so that's the Land Cruiser 105 with the 4.2 multi-valve turbo diesel engine. That would be the ultimate. Yes, in fact, it was the ultimate troop carrier too when it had that same engine in it. It was better than the V8. Brilliant engine, one of Toyota's finest diesel engines. All right, going to scroll down here. Okay, I'm going to get to lots of questions, guys. I wish I could get to all of them, but I am going to go to the super chat questions. Damon, Disco for daily driving or mild off-road? You can modify Discovery for heavy off-road. It's a brilliant off-road vehicle. It has outstanding axial articulation. Really good. Dylan, thank you, Dylan, for your contribution. Andrew, tips for overlanders going on their very first long journey in the process of prepping my 2-door Wrangler. Okay. Yeah, prep well. Understand your route well by using paper maps, not GPS. Don't think your GPS is your primary navigator. It's your secondary navigator, because paper maps give you a big picture of where you are and where you're going to, and they give you a big picture. GPS gives you a tiny little picture. So by using a paper map, you will always be aware of where you are, where you're going, where your next fuel stop is, where your next water stop is, where you are in case of challenges. Never ever use auto routing turn by turn on a GPS when in the bush. Turn it off. The number of people who they say, okay, go that, do that, turn left, turn right, and it'll give you instructions. GPS cannot tell the difference between a track that you can do 70 kilometers an hour, and it might be a gravel road that you can do 70 k's an hour on, or a track that you need to drive in low range. Sometimes a GPS cannot tell the difference. So it'll say, go there. Meanwhile, the route there is shorter by 2 kilometers, but it'll take you 9 days. Whereas if you went the other road, it'll take you 1 day. That's the kind of thing. And it happens a lot to a lot of people in all countries. So if you're going on your first trip, don't rely on GPSs. Use road maps primary, then your GPS. There are certain things that you can't skimp on when doing an overland trip. And one of those things that you cannot skimp on are tires. You're going to buy quality tires. Don't skimp on tires. Don't think, oh, these tires have still got, they've still got 10,000 kilometers on them. They'll be fine. They won't be fine. All right. Okay, so those are two things that I think come to mind immediately. Most important things. First, long journey. Yeah, lots of good prep. And don't rely on technology. Your vehicle is a pretty 97 two-door Wrangler. It's a pretty straightforward, practical vehicle. Keep things practical, and same thing. Don't go heavy. Don't go heavily on the technical stuff. Yeah, you can do proper charging systems on the battery. Yeah, you can do all that kind of thing. Don't go overboard. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Hope that helps, Dylan. Thank you for your contribution. I live in Zambia. This is Ismail. Opinion: multiple waterfalls, Lusaka to Lake Tanganyika. Don't know the road from Lake Lusaka to Lake Tanganyika. I know part of it, but I don't know the northern part of it. Somebody asked me, how long do I think I'm going to keep doing this? I'm going to keep doing this until I can't do it anymore. So I'm 60 now, and I could do this at this pace, I think, for at least another 10 years. I can't. Why? I'm very healthy. I'm a healthy person. I don't see me stopping. I enjoy it too much, and it's my work. I have no intention of retiring ever. So yeah, I will do it as long as I love doing it. After watching so many David Attenborough documentaries about Africa, it is the top of my bucket list to place and visit Heath Wells. Yes, Africa is special. Africa is unique. Every country is unique, but it is unique in a way that once you've been, it is so intoxicating that it's like an addiction. It's like a drug. It's an amazing place. But again, Africa has its risks like anywhere else. Understand the risks. Just understand what you're going into. There are dangers, but they're only dangers if you don't understand them. If you understand them, they're no longer dangers. So research and understanding and knowledge and the risks of traveling in such a place almost evaporate. Sure, it's more risky than, say, traveling in North America, I guess, but North America has different challenges. So just be smart and do lots of research. Africa is wonderful. That's why I'm pretty sad that I couldn't go this year. Buckaroony, hope everybody is well, no matter. Good to hear from you, Buckaroony. He's an old, I was going to say you're not an old guy, you're younger than me. You've been around a long time and following the channel for a long, long, long time. Okay, lots of questions coming through. I'll try and get to them. Lots of people sending good wishes from all over the world. Lovely to see all these people from some of them are actually having discussions amongst themselves. about different things. What's the first 5 mods you would do to a completely stock 79? This is from Dion. First thing I would do to a 79, stock 79. What's the first thing I would do? Very first thing I would do. See, the thing is that the 79 can do an overland trip out of the box. You don't need to do anything except the tires, because the standard tires, the Dunlop tires that Toyota supply with them, are pretty ordinary, not particularly strong. Although the latest ones are a little better. But anyway, tires. Tires. Then what else do you need? Chuck a fridge in the back and some maps. Because as they're actually they're good touring vehicles. What's nice about them, actually, we just improve them. We just throw money at them to make them better. But actually, the ride of a 79 is, not that great as a stock vehicle, but it's not terrible. It's not bad. I mean, it's not terrible. But we tend to throw money at them because we want to make it ours, and we make it, Do you prevent oil catch can on the engine? Yes, I have an oil catch can on the diesel engine. There are lots of people talking about catch cans and whether they're really worth it. Hey, they're not expensive, and so I think they're worth it. You must make sure, though, that when fitting a catch can, make sure that the piping is the same size as Toyota's own piping. Don't have if you're bypassing the pipe into the inlet manifold, don't make it narrower, because you'll create back pressure, and that's not good. And you might even get warnings from the engine computer. Why don't you test drive the Ford Ranger Raptor? The Ranger Raptor, this is from Fabulous Off-Road Designs. I'm not terribly interested in the Ford Ranger, actually. Why didn't I test drive it? I don't know. It doesn't interest me that much. It's just a pickup with, it's got good review, quite pretty good reviews, but it doesn't really interest me. It doesn't do anything for me. Would I consider, this is from Finian, would I consider the Mercedes Sprinter to be a good overlander? I think it has the potential to. I actually tried to get one in the United States, and I think it has the potential to. Look, you're not going to be doing really tough trails. It's not particularly heavily built. There are some companies that modify it and strengthen it and everything, but the Mercedes Sprinter four-wheel drive, if you think about it, this as a self-contained live-in unit, got lots of potential. Now, the guys at Sportsmobile equip the Sprinter in the States, four-wheel drive. I've driven it. Impressive, really impressive. I like the idea of the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. I'll give you $10 to put it on manual focus. So, okay, let's try to put it on manual focus. I can do that. If it's that bad, guys, I'm going to put it on manual focus. How you go? It's on manual focus. Sorry if that was troubling you, but I was looking at mine and it wasn't really. Okay, is that better? So there you go. Thanks, One Man Trail. You gave me $9.99. You still owe me a cent. Sorry it was that bad. I couldn't see it on my screen. It actually didn't look bad at all. Anyway, well, it obviously was, because enough of you mentioned it. So, Justin Lawrence, hi from South Africa. Hi, Justin. Would you consider doing overlanding in the Middle East? I have done some Middle East. You're a bit behind. I've done a number of trips in Oman and the United Arab Emirates. One of my favorite destinations. Wonderful. You'll have to go onto my website. If you look on my website, forexoverland.com, and you'll see a list of all of the stuff that I've done in the Middle East. Spend money on your camera to do live feeds. So I'm using a Sony A7 Mark III to do my live feeds, Alex. That's a $2,000 camera. I don't think I'm going to spend more, and I'm using a 24mm f1.4 lens, and that is a lens worth about not far off $2,000. So I think I've spent enough. If the autofocus is a problem, these cameras, they're still cameras, they're not video cameras, and they are not designed for this kind of work. So Okay. But enough of you are mentioning it for it to be a problem. So I put it on manual focus, and hopefully that's sorted the problem. All right. Okay, looking for destination four-wheel drive. Have you thought about sleeping on the canopy while being built of aluminium? And could it be very hot or very cold? Okay, my vehicle is not a canopy; it's a camper. Some people have saw the camper reveal and said it's just a canopy with a rooftop tent on it. It is not a canopy. It's not a canopy. It's a camper. Two different things. Sleeping on the canopy being with aluminium could be very hot or very cold. Not quite sure of your understanding of your sleeping on the canopy. I don't understand the question. Sorry, if you want to re-ask that, clarify it a little bit, I'll try and get to it. I don't know what G-Shock is. Thoughts on the FJ Cruiser as a weekend getaway vehicle? Can't think of a better one. It's like some of the Jeeps. Small, light, enormous fun to drive, spectacularly good off-road. It's wonderful. FJ is wonderful. But for long trips, can be a challenge. But some guys have done a lot of work on their FJs and made them pretty amazing. And they're lovely vehicles. I think FJ is fantastic. Okay, I live in Ireland and want to get overlanding. Unfortunately, Ireland doesn't have any wilderness areas. Got any trips for overlanding in Europe? I'm the wrong person to ask, Finian. Sorry about that. Darren has asked, how would an Iveco go crossing the Simpson? Now, the Iveco would be fine. I know a group of guys with Ivecos. There were Earth Cruiser Iveco conversions. So Earth Cruiser doesn't do a lot to the chassis. They do some minor chassis modifications, but they of course have got the camper truck on the back. And they've done, guys do crossings of the Simpson in Ivecos all the time. I don't believe we'll have any problem at all. It's actually, the Iveco off-road was accomplished. It was a good off-road. It worked well. I didn't drive it a lot off-road. We spent a day with it, and it was good. It was easy to drive. Let me just scroll down to see if there's any more paid. There's one down there. I'll get to you now. Ray Johnson, thoughts on the Cybertruck? I have no thoughts on the Cybertruck because I don't really know too much about it. I like the concept of it very much, and I think in 10 years' time, there is, we'll start seeing these electrical vehicles. I'm just looking at it and kind of thinking, well, when they get 1,000-kilometer range, then yeah, maybe. It's looking incredibly futuristic, which is kind of just a marketing hype more than really anything else, practical, So it's just really interesting watching what people are doing. If they want to make vehicles remember, these people making electrical vehicles are not making them for overlanders. They're making them for industry, mining, and that kind of thing that need long distance, heavy payload. And that's why they're making them, not for people like us. So I kind of look at the yardstick as being, if it can do 1,000 kilometers on one charge, then, well, let's start talking about possible uses for overlanding. That's kind of the way I see it. So Ray, I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Shui's Adventures, for a cup of coffee. What else? How's the Focus doing, guys? Any complaints about the Focus now? Is it better now? So all previous ones on this camera I've done with manual focus, not autofocus, and I never had a complaint. So this one I put it on autofocus, obviously big mistake. So I'm just scrolling here to make sure I haven't missed any of the paid questions. Mimanu, hello Alabama. I absolutely love your channel. Thanks for keeping us entertained through this crazy time. It's my pleasure, Mark. Hope you guys go well there. I'm watching the US news. I think the whole world is actually watching the US news more than any other country, because it's like I don't want to say anything, but no, I don't want to say anything. It's as it's unfolding, it's like, we can't believe the things that we're seeing and more hearing. We find it pretty amazing. But anyway, good luck to you guys. Hope you guys get through this. We're all in it together. EAA just cancelled 2000 air venture. Not surprising, really. Not surprising. All of these big, somebody emailed me just saying South Africa is a lost cause. Somebody actually emailed me and said they're immigrating to South Africa, and said that I asked them for some advice on a vehicle. They were thinking about buying a Hilux and automatic gearboxes. Automatic gearboxes are absolutely fine for overlanding and things like this. There are differences, obviously, but modern automatic gearboxes, they tend to can get very hot in very heavy sand conditions. So you've got long distances of thick sand, which is typical of Botswana and places like that. They can overheat, but the Hilux is a good vehicle. But you're immigrating to South Africa? Really? Do your research. Understand what you're doing. Do your research. Not many people are immigrating to South Africa. A fair amount of people are actually returning to South Africa, having left, and they miss it too much and they go back. There's not a reasonable amount of people are doing that, but not a lot of people are actually moving to South Africa. But anyway, do your research. Dave asked about fridges. Expedition Overland, they did very good comparison between 3 fridges, the Engel Snowmaster. Yes, I saw that. They were. I've seen that review. They were the higher priced fridges. There are lots of good fridge reviews. Lots of good fridge reviews all over the place. The cheaper fridges are getting better. That I've seen. The Waco is much better than they used to be. Waco used to be when they first came out, I didn't think they were very good at all. Good fridge, not expensive. Greetings from Arizona. Any thoughts? This is Art. Hello, Art. Thank you for your contribution. Any thoughts about setting up a 4x4 academy near Perth? No, I have been asked many times, countless times, to do tag-along tours, and I have always turned them down. And the main reason being is because I think I would be extremely bad at it. I have been approached by other companies doing tag-along tours saying, would you like to run some tag-along tours and bring clients in? And my reaction to them is, well, bringing clients in is not a problem, because I know that a lot of people would love to go traveling with me. Here's the problem. Would I like to go traveling with them? Now, and I say that because I'm a grumpy old fart at times. And when I'm working, when I'm filming, when I'm doing something that is, I'm very passionate about it and I'm very focused about it. And to have to do that and look after clients, I would be bad at it. I just plain would be bad at it. So I've said to all of them, I've said, look, you have to make it worth my while, because if I'm going to do a tag-along tour, I'm not going to film it. I can't do both. I cannot do both. I don't have the mental capacity to do both. So if I'm going to be a guide and I'm going to take somebody on a trip, and it'll be great fun, we'll drive, we'll sit around the campfire, we'll tell stories, and it'll be great fun. Fine, make it worth my while. I'm going to charge too much money, because I can't use that time to film and do my work that earns me money. So I have to replace that income with something else. You understand? Because I wouldn't do both. I just plain wouldn't, because I would be so bad at it. Anyway. Why is my scrolling stopped on my screen? There you go. All right. Scroll down a little bit. Looking for other a meet and greet in Spain? Not soon, Chris. Spain is not on the radar at all in terms of countries. Hello from Oman. Tariq, hello Tariq. It's good to hear from you. I think I know which Tariq that you are. Hello. I've seen you on the channel before. Hazard Bone, would you do a trip with the 4x4 action guys on or off camera? Yeah, you know, I don't know. Here's the trouble. It's a good question. The trouble is with my trips, they're mine. The guys in 4x4 action, it's theirs. Ruthie, it's his. Ronnie Dahl, he goes and does it. It's his trip. I like my trips to be my trip. And the thing is there that when you're doing a trip, I have done trips where it's somebody else's trip and I've gone along. I get a bit frustrated because the goal and aim of the trips are not the same. So if you're tagging along with somebody else, you're fitting in with their goals, not my goals. And I found it challenging. So would I do a trip with those people? I don't know. Would we, because is it their shoot or is it my shoot? It can't be both. Won't work. It can't be both. If it's their shoot, it's their shoot. That might work. But if I'm doing something and they're also shooting and I'm shooting, then I don't think it'll work. I think that would be difficult. I think I would be challenged with that. Andrew, we have a close friend with Sean Mayer who would love to build us a troopy, no budget. You want to build a trooper, but you have no budget. And we want 6x6. So when you say no budget limit, anyway, you know how to email me if you're serious about me helping you build a vehicle. I'm okay. Vid, you said you missed my question on Patreon. Sorry, Vid, but you didn't repeat the question. I'm looking for more questions from you guys for more Patreons. Any more Patreon questions? You can send them through to me. How are we doing time wise? Okay, we've got a little. I'll let it run for an hour and a half. I'm just going to scroll down looking for some more questions here. Chris, hello Chris. Do you know of a mob that make water tanks for the troopy to fit behind the rear fuel tank? Having trouble finding one. I don't know of anybody who makes a water tank to fit behind the rear fuel tank. None at all. No, I don't. Okay, Brent is okay. It's focusing on my hand, so that would have stopped now. He's mentioning the focusing problems. Okay. Greetings from Clearwater Beach, Florida. We have a Land Cruiser 100 with the center diff engaged. The traction control is disabled. Would you engage center diff or not when driving in rain, snow? Okay. My gut says you lock the center diff, but then traction control, why is the traction control turning off when you lock the center diff? There must be something there that I don't know about, Frank. There has to be, because often it will disengage when you go into low range or lock an axle diff, it'll turn off. But when you lock the center transmission, it's also turning off. Would I engage traction control? Well, it depends how good the traction control is. Because if the traction control is good enough, you won't need the center locker. If it's battling traction, lock it. My gut says lock it. Lock it first, because unless the traction control, and the Land Cruiser 100's traction control wasn't great. It wasn't particularly good. So my gut would say lock the center diff. That would be my advice to you there. Is a high lift jack worth carrying for overlanding? So now, that is a good question, Jamar, because the thing is, when overlanding, when you have a tire failure, sometimes it's on a track and it's in an awkward situation, and jacking up an axle needs a high lift jack. Getting stuck, a jack can be incredibly helpful when getting stuck. Some of my things where I've been the most stuck and the most in trouble, I've got out with a high lift jack. Lifting the vehicle up, packing underneath, or even pushing it off the jack. And so a high lift jack is good to have. So in terms of an overlander high lift jack, yeah, good idea, I would say. The major drawback of your 105 petrol was the fuel consumption or something else? Gerardo, fuel consumption. Nothing else. Fuel consumption. Fuel consumption was the only issue with the petrol 105. I loved that car. Stupid consumption. I don't know if I've told the story, I'll tell it briefly. With my 105, 4.5 was a GX model, equivalent to the GXL in Australia, 4.5, straight 6, petrol. There was a conference and I drove there at night. It was a 6-hour drive. And I drove on the N2 road in South Africa, people will know it, and I was sitting at 140 to 150. I actually once hit 170 on the clock, and car was brilliant. 15.6 litres per 100 k's. Next day I turned around and drove at the speed limit, 120, with a tailwind, 18.3 litres per 100 k's. You tell me why. With a tailwind. The vehicle was impossible. The fuel consumption was just stupid. In the desert, I'd get 3 litres per 100 k's. 3 kilometres per litre in the desert. 3. It was unusable. As much as I loved that vehicle, it was unusable. I have the ARB hydraulic lift jack. They gave me one. I have not used it. It's in the vehicle. It's still in this wrapper, and I actually want to go and use it before I go on my next trip in case I'm out there and I suddenly need a jack. So I will do that. Aldo's asked, any plans of doing the Canning stock route again with a new truck? Yes, 2021 we have earmarked it for 2021. But it also depends on Africa. As Africa is open again, I might do an extended thing in Africa instead, but that's questionable. But yes, 2021. I definitely want to do Canning stock. It's my favorite route in the country, and I want to do that in 2021. Have you ever had a water source that was sketchy? Oh, many times. So I have a purification system in my vehicle. Maybe I should do a video on it. I actually have 2 purification systems in my vehicle. So I'll take grey water and we'll shower with it, we'll wash with it. And then I have a Catadine filter pump that the water that comes out of that is sterile, basically. So I've had to use that on occasion, not that often, but on occasion we've had a problem with water. I always carry backups. I have lots of ways of carrying water, lots of ways of siphoning water, I've got this thing that I can fit on almost any tap in the world that'll get water into my tank. So I'm quite well equipped with, I should do a video on it maybe one day. So I do carry stuff that I can, if there's a water source, I'll get that water. Looking for other questions here. Right, John has asked a question. John, thank you for your contribution. Thoughts on options for the 2014 76 series gearbox to reduce RPM? Now, I don't have specific information on that, John, but I do know that the replacement gearbox, the new gearbox, is not expensive. It's not a particularly expensive modification to just take the old gearbox out and put the new gearbox in. Maybe that would be worth looking at. I don't know. 2014, so you've got the V8. That's the only modification that I've heard of that people are doing, because other modifications cost almost as much. That is what I've heard. I've not done it myself. Kevin Brennan asks, what vehicle would you recommend for a young family of 4 as a project camper for Africa that can sleep 4? dual cabs versus Land Cruisers. So you want a camper that sleeps 4. This is the big, lots of these camper companies are trying to find campers that can comfortably sleep 4. And the moment you go 4, the weight increases exponentially in terms of the weight of the actual camper. And I actually sometimes think that a camper that can sleep 2, that has an overhang where you can actually enclose a tent within that, so you have half camper, half ground tent, so the kids are on the top part of the camper, and the ground tent, which is attached to the camper, ground tent is for the adults. And that has it reduces the complexity of the camper itself and reduces the weight of the camper itself. So I would definitely consider that. A family of 4, if you're going camper, you have to go a pickup, all right? You have to go something like a dual cab. Watch my series, Kevin. I'm doing the same thing. I don't have a family of 4, but if I did, I would do something very, very similar to this, but I would have an awning and I'd have a ground tent, kids on top, parents down bottom. That's what I would probably do. And I think that is going to be, cost-wise, probably the best balance of cost and practicality. Which W cab you can't take, something like Hiluxes and things like that are actually a lot more comfortable than Land Cruisers, and they actually. My camera's just turned off. Okay, my camera's turned off, so I'm going to. The internal camera temperature has turned itself off, so I'm going to unplug it. And I'm going to go to, if you can just wait for me, guys, I'm going to be right here. Yeah, camera's turning itself off. Okay. Force quit. No, come on. Okay, just stand. So if you're still there, I don't know what's the camera overheated, so I've just turned on to my main camera. Okay, if you're all here, I'm coming back. No signal. It should be going. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay, you're back. I don't know back. So somebody tell me am I there with picture or no picture? Anybody, just type it in there. Tell me if you can see me. Signal. It should be going. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay, you should be seeing me, and I don't know why you're seeing me in a box. Okay, nothing I can do about that. We're gonna wrap it up anyway now. So I wanted to make sure that I get to all the paid questions. Am I there with picture or no picture? Okay. So, Tradewinds and Crosswind, hi from the USA. Okay, yes, you guys are telling me. Thank you very much. There's always a 20-second delay on all this. Good, all good. All right. I'm going to continue for a little while. Yeah, that camera is not suitable for this kind of application, I don't think. From Tradewinds, after a lift and tires, what do you recommend regarding Overlander when those are when are those parts necessary versus nice to have? AB, bumper armor, winch, raised air intake, etc. Okay, that's a pretty good question. The tyres are absolutely a priority. So I say to people that when they're setting up a vehicle for overland touring, the first thing you do is you need to sort out some tyres, and you're going to be carrying a heavier load, so you're going to need to sort out your shock absorbers. Those are the first two things, and they're not really nice to have, they're must-haves. Okay? Do you need a bumper? Well, depends on where you're touring. So if you're touring, I mean, you're in the United States, why would you need a bumper? I toured with my Range Rover for a decade and a half, and when I finally did need a bumper and didn't have one, it wouldn't have helped anyway because the vehicle was smashed. It was a bad accident. So, do you need a bumper? No. Nice to have. Very nice to have. Armour, underbody armour, overlanding, you don't need underbody. I'm getting another error coming through here, guys. I think I'm going to have to call it a day. Yeah, sorry, technical problems. As I've always said, these live shows are like launching a rocket to the moon. It would be is easier to do than these live shows. So the only way I can get a live show to actually run smoothly is to use a phone, and everybody else uses a phone, and the quality looks terrible. And you just do it the simplest way. I try and do it a little bit better than that. Are you still? I don't know if you're still seeing me. I think you are. I've got something coming up. Error, poor stream status. Don't know why it's a poor stream status, but anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up now. I can no longer scroll my page. The scroll page is now. Oh, there you go. It's come back. You're enjoying torn trousers. Rumble strip. Good. Okay, looks like we're back for a moment here. Okay. Yeah, my watch is being repaired, and then they closed the factory. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys. It's a pity that the last bit here just didn't do terribly well. Just go back and see if there are any other questions that I did. Okay. All right. So not too many other questions, and I hope I managed to get to all of those important ones. Thanks for watching. Now, okay, so this week I'm going to edit the, I got the camper, and so I'm going to have an enormous amount of fun this week for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday, we're putting it on the vehicle. We've got to build a spacer. Thank you, Giovanni from Brazil. You're always around. See you next time. Thank you. I think Giovanna is my oldest fan. When I say old, I'm talking about longest. Few other questions. On my 105 Land Rover, would you swap for a 1 HD FTE, which is the multi-valve? I swap it in a heartbeat, but it's quite a complicated swap and it's quite expensive, so I'll live with the 1HZ. I will just put up with the 1HZ. But I like to. Yes, the Sony, these Sony cameras, they do hour and a half. Running for an hour and a half is for that kind of camera. It's not a video camera; it's a stills camera shooting video. They at 4K. They you know. So it's one of these. Thank you very much. I see people saying goodbye and leaving. Great, guys. Thank you for sticking around for this long. There are more Patreon questions. Okay, let's restart that page. Let's see if I can find any. Load more comments. Come on, load more comments. Load the comments. Okay, how many more Patreon questions are there? Okay, I think I've got to most of those now. Greetings from Melbourne. Any recommendations for a lightweight roof rack for my Land Cruiser 105? Yeah, I kind of like the Tracklander racks. They're light, very strong. That's what I'm putting on the 79. I like it because they're light and strong. What fits in the balance of the space behind the cab opposite the spare tire? Stephen, the water tank. My wife asked whether it's a good idea to overland a world with a 4-year-old kid. Why not? Afriton? Why not? Challenging, but why not? I don't think it'll help you get through border posts, having a young kid. Jay, with a jack-off Kennedy, would you recommend airbags in the rear to improve ride comfort and without the weight? I have also seen adjustable bypass rear shocks. Would they work too? So adjustable bypass rear shocks, yes, because you can, if you can control the shock absorber, that's good. I am very, very, very wary of airbags. Okay, Flexus, thank you for your contribution. It's my pleasure, mate. I am very wary of airbags. I have seen broken chassis because of badly located airbags. When the designers design those suspensions, they design the geometry, the forces to work in a certain way. Adding airbags doesn't always, but can introduce loads that the chassis is just plain not designed for. I'm very, very wary of airbags. And they should never be used in a situation where, I need to carry more load. They are great for towing and to help the stability. But if you're using them to carry more weight, you're going to break something. Don't. And the worst idea of an airbag ever is to put an airbag inside a coil spring, because it stops the coil spring working. It actually stops it work. It stops the coil spring doing its job. Creates all kinds of problems. I've seen broken chassis. I've seen people pull their hair out and they think, oh, I need more weight. I remember one, I won't say his name, he would ask me for advice and then never take it. And he had a 105 and he said, oh, I need to carry more weight. And I said, you don't need to carry more weight, mate. Your vehicle is far too heavy. But anyway, it was too heavy. It was 49 kilograms over GVM empty. And he said, I'm going to put airbags in. I said, well, that's a bad idea. And he did. And actually, in the middle of a trip, actually had to take them out because he said the ride was unbearable. So just be careful. I don't like airbags. Side with the walls. YouTuber, can you do more electrical install videos? I'm in the USA and we don't have automotive electricians. Okay, so I rather like the electrical install videos. So now with the latest Australia Dream Cruiser, we are actually doing I'm looking at the wrong camera now. I'm looking at that camera. That's my new camera. We are actually doing a lot of electrical installs, because we're going to do an electrical install now in the vehicle. You saw the video probably where Heiner basically said, yeah, we could do better than that. And we're also going to do an electrical install in the camper, so when the camper is bolted on and it's plug and play. So there will be more. And Heiner's an absolute whiz. I learn masses from him all the time. He's changing the way I'm thinking about a lot of electrical stuff as well. He's kind of getting me to question more. You know, you have certain, you grow up with certain things that you learn and that's your thing. And now he's kind of saying, actually, think of it this way. It's really good, really, really, really good. So it's a good association with him. He's a bit of a whiz with electrics. Let's see if there are any more Patreon questions here. Jonathan, thanks for the home special with Gwyn. It was fun, wasn't it? It was actually great fun to do. I have a well body Mazda BT50, also my daily. He's asking about large toolboxes, fold out older style rooftop tent, a traditional style canopy with a clamshell rooftop tent. Last, I'm considering converting an ex-army trailer. The reason I'd like to set up and leave it as a ute for the day use and change it back to an overlander for travel. Great to hear your thoughts. So to have something that you can actually fit in the back and take off for your travels is really, really cool. So if you could build something that you could actually put in the back for and actually take out and store, not unlike that I'm doing, but do it, but if it's a well body, then you have to obviously modify it for that. But have something and think about it as being self-contained. That's a self-contained unit that you put in for when you're going on a trip. The type of tent you put on the top and that kind of thing is really up to you, but it's quite possible to do it, and I think it's probably quite possible to do it oneself. Difficult for me to give you a really detailed answer on that. Would you ever, this is Tim, would you ever consider overlanding with an independent front suspension vehicle? Absolutely. Is it doable, only solid? No, not at all. So you don't need a solid front axle to go touring. It would be better if you had a solid front axle when going off-roading, because they're better off-road. But independent front suspension vehicles are also very good off-road, many of them extremely good off-road. So no, don't think about that. You know, for off-road, yes, solid axles are better for a number of reasons. Touring, not necessarily better at all. Really, not necessarily better. So no, I don't believe that should be a limitation at all on overlanding and trip taking. I don't believe that's. No. Colleen from Melbourne, any recommendations for a lightweight roof rack? I've mentioned that before. Okay, sorry, I'm repeating myself a bit here. Somebody asking about an engine swap for a 105. So you've got the FSJ 105, which is the 4.5. No, Stefan, no. Don't have a suggestion there. You have to live with that engine. It's actually a great engine. It's just thirsty. Very reliable engine. So David, planning the UAE. Experience with your day trip. Speak to Sean Mayer. His channel is called Expedition Extreme. And anything in the AU, Oman, that area, Salalah, that area, he's the go-to guy. So I'm sure that, I can't give you information, but he will. He's very, very knowledgeable. That's about it, chaps. Let me just quickly go back to questions from general YouTubers. Flexus, thank you very much. Flexus, yes, thank you. Right, I think we're going to, let's say, 2 more questions. Let me see. Okay, some people explaining my autofocus problems. Would you please comment on the reliability of your second 105 Land Cruiser after the turbo build? So, my second 105 Land Cruiser. So, my second 105 did have the turbocharger, but I had a low pressure turbocharger. It had a manually opening wastegate. It would open the wastegate at, I can't remember how many PSI it was. It was 0.6 bar, I think it was. I think it was. Anyway, it would open and spill. And it was, and the thing is with turbochargers, you have to make sure that cylinder head doesn't get too hot. Most important thing. Cylinder head must not get too hot. So the best way of doing that is to put an exhaust system to expel air quickly, to get the airflow faster. If you want to put a turbocharger on it, rather an intercooler on it, yes, good. Intercooler will cool the intake air. It's all about keeping it cool. The trouble is with some intercooler, they restrict air to the engine because they're put in front of the engine radiator. So now you've got an intercooler radiator, then you've got an air conditioning radiator, and by the time the air gets to the engine radiator, it's already pretty hot. So it affects the car's cooling. So that has an adverse effect. It's all about temperature. So I never had an intercooler. So, which the problem is with not having an intercooler is that the charge air is higher temperature. And because the charge air is a higher temperature, you're starting off with a high temperature. However, I had an exhaust pipe modification to spill the air, and that helped. But I would have to be quite careful with it. I had to, it would run at quite high EGTs. Not massively high EGTs, but I had to be aware of it. You've got to be aware of that temperature. As long as you're aware of that temperature, okay. That thing gets hot, it blows holes in the pistons. So be careful of modifying and turbocharging a 1.8Z. It can lead to big problems, and it often does. David, your video is inspirational. I appreciate the opportunity to live vicariously through you, especially during the COVID times. Well, thank you, everybody. David, thank you very much, and everybody from around the world. I'm going to. Can I copy your Bahama Gold wrap? Of course you can. I will even send you the Pantone or the color code, the CMYK codes. So if you want to copy me, you're absolutely well. Lots of people copied the Troop Carrier. Sean Wales, what's the goal weight on the cruiser when fully kitted? As little as possible. I don't actually have a goal weight, but I cannot go over 3950, but I don't think I'm going to be close to that. But then again, I'm always an optimist and generally underestimate things. I think we all underestimate the weight of things we put on our vehicles. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Thank you very, very much. What propeller did you run on your Rotax engine with your motor glider? I can't remember. I think it was an MT. I can't remember. It came. Trip with Paul Marsh? Definitely do a trip with Paul Marsh. What do you think about the Nissan GU patrols? Okay, in Australia, I said I was going to leave. In Australia, the patrol has the jingoistic following. If you think Land Rover owners are bad, you must try the patrol owners in Australia. I mean, they are just completely obsessed with their patrols. Okay, here's in a nutshell. The Nissan Patrol basically is a very, very strong vehicle, extremely well built. Some of the engines, like Toyota really, some of the engines are really good. Some of the petrol engines, unbreakable. They're big 4.5 straight six, can't break it. They actually love it in the desert because they actually drive it on the rev limiter, because then when they're going up the dunes, if you can imagine driving a car on the rev limiter, you've got maximum power, then zero power, then maximum power, then zero power, then maximum power and zero power 100 times a second. So these things just scream up the dunes and they go, they make this very strange noise. Unbreakable engines, very, very strong drivetrains. Chassis no stronger than the Land Cruisers. So if you look at the broken chassis, there are at least as many Nissan Patrol broken chassis as there are in any other vehicle. So the chassis are no stronger. Some of their diesel engine, the 3-litre diesel engine, very weak, and just not a particularly reliable engine. All of these vehicles have, and am I a big Patrol fan? No, I'm not a big Patrol fan. It's a good vehicle, very good vehicle, in many, 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 many ways. So, but I don't have any desire to own a Nissan Patrol. But the Nissan Patrol fanboys will have a go, and somebody actually commented, "Oh wait, you'll break the axles." What do you mean we'll break the axles? That was such a Nissan thing to say. I think his YouTube name was "I Drive a Nissan." What a ridiculous thing to say. Actually, a ridiculous thing to say. The Land Cruiser 79 is popular because it doesn't break axles. The Patrol is popular for exactly the same reason. So anyway, it's a bit silly, but you need to be level-headed about it, guys. All of these vehicles have weaknesses and they all have strengths, and what the strength that appeals to you is the reason why you're driving that, is because that particular advantages works for you. Doesn't that work for everybody? It works for you. The 79 Land Cruiser has got lots of weaknesses, but it has so many strengths that it's fantastic. Okay. I don't know. The Nissan Xterra. I don't know the Xterra well enough, but I do know that it has a lot of potential. Now, the Nissan Navara wagon, you're talking about cars that I'm not familiar with and cars that are not sold in Australia with those names. So the Nissan Pathfinder is pathetic. The earlier one was pathetic. The current ones are pathetic. The Nissan Navara pickups, I think, are some of the most under-engineered vehicles available. I don't think they're good cars. I think they're made on the cheap. It's just an impression I get. The Nissan Xterra is not. The old Nissan X-Trail is not. They're properly built vehicles. So I don't know. The Nissan Navara wagon, I'm not sure which one that is, because here we don't get a Navara wagon. We get Navara pickups. They call them pickups here. So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. But the Xterra wasn't sold here. But it was very popular in the States, and it's a good, strong little built vehicle, from what I know. But I've never owned one. These are all kind of things that I read and people talk, and this is what I gather from them. So I drove a Nissan Qashqai the other day. I rented it. What a boring, ordinary with a capital O vehicle. My wife's Corolla is far nicer. It's quieter, it handles better, it's got better controls, the seating, everything is better. I think a lot of Nissan vehicles are just made on the cheap. I just don't think that, I've never been a Nissan guy, but I do see some of the Nissan cars. The Nissan X-Trail, early Nissan X-Trail, really good vehicle. Such a good vehicle. When is my Rolex coming back? I don't know. The factory's closed and they're fixing it. Would you do another Ronnie modified video on the new truck? If he asks me, of course, yes. Is there going to be a new engine for the Troopy? Is there going to be a new engine for the Troopy? Oh, are you talking about Toyota stopping? Within 3 years, I reckon the V8 diesel will no longer be made, and it'll be replaced with a V6, probably a dual turbo. I think that's what you're talking about, because I no longer own a Troopy. I sold my troop carrier. Would the 1HD FT worth the extra money over the 1HT? No. 1HD turbo in the 80 series is fantastic. I tell you what, if you take your 1HT out of your 80 series, please can I buy it from you? 1HD turbo is one of the best turbo diesel. No, don't change it. Wasting your time and money. Leave the engine as it is. Yes, you'll get a little bit more out of the multi-valve. Not worth it. Uses more fuel, more complicated, heavier. Not heavier, same weight. More complicated and uses a little bit more fuel. What's the point? Yes, it's a bit more powerful. No, I'd put in a 1HDT in my 105 if I could. Engine of choice. No question about it. Yeah, some people agreeing with me on the Nissan stuff. The Isuzu D-Max is rather nice little, but it's a lightweight SUV. Hey, that D-Max. It's like the Fortuner. Don't overload those vehicles. Those lightweight little SUVs. Very nice to drive. Very versatile. Good on fuel. Not expensive. You can use them for overlanding and off-road. Don't overload them. Not particularly strongly built. You shouldn't overload anything. But just be aware. Okay, lots of people asking me about my watch. Now, I've had it for 39 years, and I had it serviced when the strap broke I'd had it for 20 years, so now this is another 19 years. Just started losing quite a lot of time, and so I sent it in for servicing. I do miss it a lot. Okay. Another question from Side with the Wolves. Have you any opinions on the Ford single turbo EcoBoost? No. Currently found in the Ranger, especially in North America. No, I don't, and some of these new Ford engines are pretty amazing. Amazing how much power and torque they're getting out of small engines and light engines. Ford are making some amazing engines. They really are. I have a secret love for the Ford F-150 Raptor. I would get one of those in America just because, well, when you're in America, you got to do what Americans do and be. I think that's such a good car. I don't know if it's a good car. I guess it's a pretty good car, but I just love it. There's a part of me that would love to go I'd take probably a Ford with a 150 with a one of those four-wheel pop-up campers on it. They're more interesting than the Tundra. Tundra's boring. Good, boring. Ford, not boring. Does converting a Land Cruiser pickup with an automatic compromise performance? I don't know. There are a lot of guys doing automatic conversions on Land Cruiser 79s, and I understand they're really expensive, but people just swear by them. They love them. The guys that do it love them. I would consider doing it, but it's just a lot of money. I would consider doing it. I would consider doing it. I've been on long trips. I remember my 290 GD, and it was my first automatic. How many automatics have I owned? My two G wagons. I think that's all. Yeah, I think that's all. And it was fantastic for a trip where we were driving at 20 k's an hour, 25, 30, 20, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 15 for 4 days. It was marvelous. Marvelous. Really, really nice. Lithium batteries do not release vapor and gases when charging. Otherwise, I would not put any battery that vents, should not be put in the cab. So they do not vent. AGMs also do not. Sealed AGMs do not vent. AGMs, not one difference between deep cycle and AGM deep cycle. Okay, so standard deep cycle vents. So it's all a matter of when it vents. If it vents, you can't put it in the cab. Because the gases are quite poisonous and flammable. Yes, and F-150s are everywhere. I know they are. They're the most common vehicle in the United States. I still think they're fantastic. I don't know something about them. I wouldn't have them one in Australia though, because the big American, you can buy a Tundra or a 150 or the Dodge Ram 2500, but they're wide and they tend to pick up punctures because the edge of the wheels are in the edge of a tracks. All our tracks are made by Land Cruisers and Hiluxes and that kind of vehicle, and Nissan Patrols. So they're narrow. So now you drive with a tire that's wider and pick up punctures. That's why vehicles like Unimogs, and they're not particularly popular here because the width creates tire problems. I know people that do drive with those larger vehicles on the tracks, and they take on the roughest tracks you can dream of, but they have tire problems because of that same width issue. So it is an issue. Right, I think I actually am going to wrap it up now. It is 2 hours. We've done a 2-hour thing. Sorry about the fallout in the middle. Did I get to all of your questions? I believe I did. Thank you for all of your contributions. Gratefully received. I hope you guys get through this very challenging time for us all. And hey, we're a global channel. We're not being very global, but we are thinking about things. So we are trying to find ways of getting around this and doing the best we can. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. It's been lots of fun. I hope I've managed to get to most of your questions, and I really do appreciate your patronage. I will see you on Wednesday or Thursday with the video on the first look of the Tommy camper. That's a fun one. See you then. Bye for now.